In the last few years, everything has changed in the way we consume music, from sites like MySpace, All FM and now Spotify. But I'm sure you've heard endless reports on how the industry has to keep evolving to keep up with digital changes, and to be honest, it's a little bit... Our technological advances are all well and good, but personally I feel a little bit soulless. I don't know about you, but I like to have a physical copy of a record in the same way that I like to have a physical copy of a music magazine. Maybe it's the ritual, maybe it's the fact that when I was 2 years old someone bought me a Thriller cassette at a Christmas fair and it was mine and I got to hide it from my brothers. That's irrelevant, but that's what? So we're here on a Saturday in Manchester to visit some of our favourite record shops and talk to the staff and the customers about how important the ritual is of still being able to go into an independent record store and buy a physical copy of whatever takes your fancy.
Yeah, my name's Ray. I'm one of the managers at Vinyl Exchange. There's been a trend over the last few years, probably since about 2002, 2003, downwards in terms of CD sales. Vinyl's a separate thing, but in terms of CD sales, there's been a trend downwards. But in the last year, since things went tits up in economic terms, we haven't noticed a particular decline in our business. We had a quiet summer, but in recent times we've always had a quiet summer, so that isn't necessarily related to those circumstances.
What circumstances do you think make it rise or decline in popularity?
I really haven't the faintest idea. I don't think anyone's satisfactorily explained that. It's odd that it should be so, though, because obviously the further away you get from the classic vinyl era, which I would argue probably lasted until the late 80s when CDs began taking over, the further away you get from that, the more people you get being born who've never had a record player, who've never held a record, whose parents probably sold their records. It's hard to explain, but a lot of the people who are buying records are too young to have remembered records when they were the only format, along with cassettes, obviously, for music reproduction. Why they would suddenly... I mean, it's the usual thing, I suppose. It's the explanations everyone offers. Records are nicer to handle, sleeves are bigger, there's more to look at, there's more of a sense of excitement about going and buying a record than there is about going and buying a CD, for a lot of people. I think, obviously there are going to be people who argue that records actually sound better than CDs. I think there's a lot of kidology involved in that. I think if you were to do a blindfold test for most people who say that and played the same item on record and CD without them being told, they probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The only thing that would alert you to any difference would be the possible crackle on a record. But I understand why people are keen on vinyl because of the niceness of the object, the size of the object, the fact that the sleeve artwork's a lot clearer. And there's more of a sense of excitement, I guess, in handling a record. And a lot of records these days are actually well manufactured. They're substantial pieces of vinyl. There's a period in the 80s, 70s and 80s where it was late 70s, early 80s. I think it might have been related to the oil crisis, maybe. But records were flimsy. They were almost like flexi discs. They were terrible. If CDs had been around at that point, there'd have been a powerful argument for CDs, just in terms of their solidity taking over from records. But you know, a nicely manufactured record, properly packaged, is a beautiful object. It's a bit too late for me to be romantic about that, though, since I sold my record collection now.
Any comments on what makes an independent record shop different to a high street chain?
I have, as it happens, yeah. I think one of the most obvious features is that the staff employed in independent record shops are generally more knowledgeable and more motivated as fans of music than people who end up working in chains. It's not a generalisation that holds 100% true. I'm sure that there are people working in the big H&B on Market Street who are, well, I actually know one. I know a person who works there, and he's a really big film fan, a genuine music fan and so on, but you get the impression, and this is reinforced by many customer comments, that if you go into a shop like that and ask for something that's remotely out of the ordinary, that isn't in the NME or whatever it is, the 18, 20-year-old that you're asking the question of reads, they not only don't know what you're talking about, they can't even be bothered using the computer system to look it up. It's like, if they've not heard of it, it doesn't exist. And unfortunately, at that age and with that attitude, there's an awful lot that you've not heard of, because you won't find out, because you don't give a shit.
My name's Abigail Ward and this is Piccadilly Records on Oldham Street, Manchester. I think sometime prior to the supposed meltdown, things were slowing down a lot for record shops anyway. as a result of changes in the music industry, and there has continued to be a gradual slowdown. Although I think in a recession, people still need small, relatively inexpensive items to cheer themselves up. And so I think records are inexpensive enough to sort of remain on people's shopping lists. People still need to dance and go out and take drugs and party, so we're hanging in there really. If you come into this shop, first of all you're sort of greeted by what I think is just thousands of visual delight. I mean, I'm a real vinyl obsessive because I like to hold a piece of artwork in my hand that says something about the music itself. I mean, I'll just pull one of these off the shelf now. This new Yo La Tengo album, and I just think the sleeve's gorgeous. I've got a poster up in my room, and it tells me something about what's contained inside, and it gives me a feeling for the music, and it's an actual beautiful object to hold. And also just the physical activity of putting a record on is in itself, you know, quite a precise and pleasing activity. Well, it is for me anyway. And I do use MP3s. They are functional, and you know, I do love walking around and listening to music. But an MP3 itself, a file, a non-physical object, it gives me no additional feeling for the music whatsoever. And also, when you come into a record shop like this, you get a lot of conversation from staff, between staff and punters, about what they're buying, and that human interaction is irreplaceable. I think it will be really sadly missed if it was to go.
What would you say sort of makes Piccadilly Records stand out?
The attractiveness of the staff.
My name's Derek Howe, and we're in Beating Rhythm, and we've been here for 11 years, and 10 years previous to that as Goldmine Records.
Have you seen sort of any difficulties with people buying records, considering that we've been in a recession for the last year or so?
Not that much here, because we're pretty specialised and we're a niche market. I know it's empty now, but it's been quite good this morning, and it's been a good week. Well, we appeal to an adult market who like an object, like to see something in their hand for the money they've just spent, and like sleeve notes, and just like to own it generally. Well, knowledge of the staff, obviously, you know, and treating customers well, and we got time for people, and generally that, you know, good. We give the best service, you know.
Do you find that you've got like some quite loyal customers that always come back to get what they need?
Very much so, yeah. From all over the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the world. We get foreign visitors coming over as well, buy a lot of stuff, yeah. We've got about 10 or 15 really good soul sellers at the moment, Northern Soul and funk sellers. You know, it's there's product. As long as the product's there, we can sell it.
My name's Will, and I work at Eastern Bloc Records in Manchester, and I specialise in the house and techno and things. So I think we're the same, because obviously we're not as busy as say we were 10 years ago, but we're still quite busy because we're quite student dependent. So obviously in the summers we're quiet, and then term time, like many sort of shops like us, we're dependent on students. So recession doesn't really affect students because they always get their loan and they've always got parents with money in the bank. So I think if you buy a record, you like that record more than if you were to buy 10 MP3s, because then the next week you'll buy another 10 MP3s, and then before you know it you've just got a hard drive full of mediocre tunes that you'll never really listen to. But when you come into a record shop, yeah, they're more expensive, but the ones you buy you will really enjoy, and you will get the most out of them, and you'll remember them, where they are and when to play them, and you know, which you don't get with an MP3. I think it's because we are independent. You go to HMV, a lot of people are quite hostile towards them because they're, you know, it's the record industry dictates what they stock. But with us, if we like it, if we think we've got customers that will buy it, we'll stock it regardless of, you know, we might get one copy in for one person, yet HMV will have minimums. You know, they'll get a minimum of 50 copies because they have to justify the fact of getting it in. But with us, it's felt more tailor-made. Yes, we can be a bit more expensive, but it's just the same as any independent, like with regards to a greengrocer or a deli, with, you know, in contrast to supermarkets and things. That's how we see it. Us record shops, independents, are, you know, the greengrocers on the corner, and then you've got the HMVs and people like that are the Asdas and the Sainsbury's that are killing the marketplace, but obviously I'm biased.